Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, friends, before we kick off this week's episode, we got a little surprise for you.
Yeah, we are doing a conference on boundaries for free. We want to invite you.
What?
I know. We want to invite you to come learn about boundaries while we have none. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But we want you to be able to be a part of it. We have a school, the Life Consulting Masterclass. It's a 3-year program. And every year we do conferences where there's a deep dive on different subjects. And this year we're inviting you to join the school for the conference on boundaries.
Yeah,
it'll be
hang out.
interactive. It'll be fun. It'll be empowering.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good time. And it's October 18th and the 19th, Friday and a Saturday. All you have to do is go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com/boundaries. And you can get all the extra details there. You can sign up for it. We'll send you a little something in your email. And check your spam.
You have to respond. You have to get the email and respond to it to be able to come. Because last time, all the links got lost in spam.
Yeah. So go check out that spam folder if you don't find it right away after you hit send.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hey, without further ado, here's the episode you're wanting to watch. Just had to get myself comfortable here today, guys. For those of you who don't know, I'm married to a liar.
Wow.
I am married to a filthy liar. I've spent years in this marriage, waking up in the morning and having conversations with her. And I'll be like, hey, this is what we need to do today. She's like, yeah, totally into it or whatever. And then later on, nothing. Doesn't remember a bit of it. And she acts like she's awake, but she's not actually awake. You are the worst person in the morning on the face of the planet.
Okay, but the reason
not only are you grouchy,
calling
but
me...
you're a liar. Tell them why you're a liar.
Well, the reason you're calling me a liar is because every single time you have a conversation with me in the morning, you're like, are you understanding this? Are you awake? Will you remember this later?
Absolutely.
And I say with full confidence every time, totally awake. I will completely remember this. I'm insulted that you think I won't. And then an hour later, no recollection.
It's so funny because there's been times where I'm like, are you sure? And you're like, you grumpily are like, yes, I'm awake.
How dare you question my awakeness?
Oh, okay.
We bring it up because that
The
happened
monster's
this morning.
alive.
I was late for the podcast recording because you told me the time.
Yeah.
But that I did not take in any of that information.
No, you didn't.
Nope.
Yeah. So here we are. We're a little late, but that's okay. I'm not offended by that because I planned for that.
You told me that time so that I'd be here by now.
I've created this spot inside of me that holds disappointment, pre-disappointment. I was just like, I already have it. I'll just go to my pre-disappointment that I set up about this situation on time. It's my friend.
That's hysterical. Okay. Well, for those of you who are new to the show, welcome. We are Justin and Abby. We've been married for 16 years.
Ooh.
And we became life consultants because we had so many people in our lives that were getting profound life transformation being around us, and they asked if they could pay us. And so we started
Sounds like we're kind of a big deal.
We started working with people. It transformed their lives. They told their friends. We accidentally started a business that grew so big, we had to start training people in what we did. And now we have a 3-year school where we train people to be life consultants. That is the quick spiel of who we are.
Yeah, that's who we are. We've been doing that for over a decade.
Yes. And cool. Rachel is one of the consultants that we've trained. She's been with us for, I want to say 11 or 12 years.
Yeah, I think, I want to say 12.
Yeah.
But I don't do time very well.
Go away, Rachel. Go away.
You're done.
Quit
You're
following
over
us.
it.
Quit following us. No, we want her forever. We will keep you forever and ever. And she is a So she's a life consultant with us, but she also helps run our school, which is wonderful. And she's a genius.
I was going to say that. That's one of the things. You are an absolute genius. Rachel has a background in a very messy childhood growing up.
As we all do.
As we all do.
Draw.
I fit into the club.
Draw from that. And there's been something about your pursuit of healing that also is like, you are this sponge of knowledge and wealth. And you'll say stuff at times, I'm like, she's so brilliant. Where is this coming from? But it's like, there's that passion for your own personal healing. And there's that passion for other people to find others, healing and transformation. So I love that about you.
And today we're going to talk about a subject. I have been wanting to do this podcast for probably 3 months. I ask every week, but we've just had schedule misses because it is a subject I'm so passionate about. It's a dating / marriage subject.
Yeah. I like putting
because
it's
really, basically it's a human relational dynamic that nobody talks about. And
get to be the first one.
It's a kooky word.
It's a kooky word.
That
Rachel
can't
is like,
remember to say, right?
I
can say it now.
Okay.
You want to hear it?
Let's go.
Limerence.
Yes.
I always want to call it lumerence.
Yes. I've heard you also say like luminescence. Like it just keeps adding more letters to the word.
The title I don't understand. The concept I've lived out my whole life.
Yes.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've all lived this concept out. This is
I was going to say, like, I think most people will not have heard the word, but when we describe it, you'll probably be like, I've done that, or I've had like 3 friends who do that.
Yes.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah. Some people are going to feel so validated by this.
And some of you might feel a little called out.
Yep.
Ooh.
We'll see. This is one concept that will change your dating.
Yes.
It's
And it
one
has the
concept
power
that could change your marriage.
It absolutely has the power to change your marriage inside of this. But it will come at the cost of letting go of a lot of expectations that you've created.
Yep.
So let's get into this conversation.
All right, what is this L word?
Limerence,
the L word. Should we just call it the episode
the L word?
The L word.
Yeah.
Although then it sounds like we're talking about something else.
Totally.
But so limerence is a term coined by a psychologist named Dorothy Tenoff in the 70s. You guys can already tell that there's a nerd on board for the podcast. And basically, to be really simple about it, a way I like to think about it is it's where you have more of an attachment to your fantasy or your ideal version of somebody than who they actually are in real life. And there's a couple different like key defining attributes of when you're in limerence. So one thing is obsessive thoughts about that person. So you could have looping thoughts, intrusive thoughts about the person. Another thing is you might have like high-low self-esteem based on how you're imagining or sort of believing that the other person is
feeling of you or
feeling towards
responding
to you. So you had an interaction that felt positive. So, oh my gosh, I'm on cloud 9. I'm the best ever. You had a interaction that felt like maybe wasn't the best. And now you're feeling like you're in despair. Another one is that you sort of subconsciously have the person up on a pedestal. They're sort of a little bit glorified. If you were to talk about that person, you probably would have most of the things that you would say would be all of the wonderful, positive, glorious things about them. And you're probably less aware of some of their like red flags or yellow flags about who they are. And let's see, you might have a little bit of some obsessive behavior. So you might like want to check up on them on how they're doing on social media.
Print off pictures and staple them all over your walls.
Obsessive feels like a strong
Photoshop
word.
yourself in with them.
I feel like obsessive feels like a strong word, but I'm like, I think
maybe
we all
you just kind of get stuck thinking about them and needing to like build a bond or connection or find out what they're doing, how they are.
Exactly.
Talk about them with your friends a lot.
Totally. Like, and then a lot of it is conversations around like assumptions about what could have been happening. So less about like, these are the facts of what actually happened in that interaction, and way more about when he said that, do you think that he secretly meant this?
Yes.
Or like when he was saying this, do you think it was because he knew that I liked that and that's why he said that? Or do you think it's because he thought that I was this horrible, and all like it's about this sort of land of assumption that we're sort of
Ooh.
imagining and building for ourselves.
It's a big fantasy work. So a lot of this is built on fantasy. And I want to start by breaking shame. 100% I've done this. I think you've probably done this. You've done this.
100%.
Most of the people that I have processed through singleness have done
100%.
this. So I don't want it to be a shameful thing. I want when you hear yourself being called out and described to the T, I want you to hear like this is a human thing. And we're actually going to describe why it's human from childhood and why it makes sense that we do this.
Yeah.
But the concept is we fall in love with the idea of someone more than we fall in love with who they actually are. And we attach to the idea we have in our mind of who they are. And then we make up a world where there's a much deeper connection that we have with them.
Yes.
Through whatever it is. And it could be, you know, in a spiritual world, I've had people be like, I felt like God told me I'm going to marry them. And so they
100%.
build a huge connection based on that in their mind.
Totally.
In a more secular space, it can just be the fantasy that you build upon over and over again. But there's some kind of anchor where you think you're, you know, like they're your person, but maybe you're not even friends. Or maybe you're just friends.
Yeah.
That you see each other sometimes, or they've showed no interest, but you have completely fallen in love with the idea of them. And it's like love goggles every time that you see them.
I love that.
Would you say that beyond like the intimate relationship, like the idea of like, this is a romantic possibility of someone, this also veers into say, people that we put on a pedestal, such as maybe, I don't know, pastors or famous, you know, I don't know, actors, actresses. Is that part of that too?
There's a lot of similarities between that. This particular term is used to refer to like specifically dating and romantic relationships.
Gotcha.
But to me, there is a lot of overlap because I've done this with not romantic people all the time, where I've had leaders in my life or people that felt like super special. And to me, my life became a little bit organized around wanting their love. And to me, in a way, it kind of feels like a very similar system.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I was thinking is we can do the L word.
Limerence.
We can get obsessed with celebrities or people on Instagram or people that we don't know. And we can build entire made up worlds around the idea that we have a connection. So maybe we comment or DM them on one of their stories. And then they respond back with like a heart, and we can make up
a whole
what that
world
means.
about it. Absolutely.
They saw my comment and they think it was really meaningful and they felt really connected to it. So they hearted it. You know, like the ability to jump into assumptions beyond the actual relational equity that we have.
Totally. And I love what you're saying about that, specifically because one of the really defining factors of limerence is it actually thrives in uncertainty, because there's sort of like some information, but a lot of gap of information. And so that is part of the like almost like addictive mind cycle, is there's like a little bit of uncertainty. So your brain likes to have a little bit of the uncertainty so that you can fill in with what it is that you're kind of hoping and wanting it to be.
This feels, you know, the concept is a really devastating concept. I don't know if it's okay to go here for a second. It is so devastating. The level of disappointment that hits when reality sinks in about multiple things, about the reality of the connection that we do or don't have.
That's so true.
Right? Then the reality of who someone actually is. That is such a huge disturbance. I mean, like, I think there's levels in, like when we got married, that we had expectations.
She laughs immediately.
Of who each other were. And we're like, this is not what I signed up for. My mind did not perceive this was.
Oh, yeah. Because we fill in the gaps. We take a few things. Like maybe I saw you play with kids 4 times. And so then you're like, well, obviously he's great with kids and he's going to make an amazing father. And I don't, I'm not saying he wouldn't. Guess what?
this guy got snipped.
So the idea is we take some interactions that we have, or maybe you watch him open the door for women. And so you're like, he loves women.
Yes.
He's so kind to women. He has no women issues.
Yeah, I hate women. Silly.
Well, when we got married, you had a lot more women issues than I knew.
I did have women issues, but I was very caring towards women.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm saying.
But
I watched you be caring towards women. I made an assumption that meant you had no women issues.
Totally.
And then I was surprised.
Yeah, like, oh, there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of this is just for the neuroscience people who care out there. Your brain, when you're in limerence, is actually a little similar to when you're triggered. So that means
it's
that
not fully thinking.
It's your thinking part of your brain is less online.
Yes. Your
And
executive function is not working as much.
Exactly. And then your amygdala, your emotion center of your brain, is much more flooded and much more online. And so what a part of that part of your brain does is really good at connecting meaning that is emotional that you're seeing in front of you. So that exact thing. I'm going to have a few interactions where you're great with kids and my brain is really wanting to assign an emotional meaning to what I'm seeing, partially so that I can feel a good feeling.
Yeah.
On the inside of me.
I get like a dopamine hit.
Yes.
Once I see, and I'm scanning for all the things that I want in a partner.
Right.
And I'm looking for evidence that you have the things I want in a partner.
100%.
And so that I can feel that green light. That green light is like a ding, ding, ding. Oh, this feels good. Oh, he could be the right fit. Oh, now it's so exciting. Now maybe I'm going to marry him, or maybe he's my forever love, or maybe he's the one I've been waiting for, or maybe finally I'll feel seen, or finally I'll feel loved, or finally I'll feel known. It's that feeling of I'm looking to prove that you could be the Prince Charming that I want, instead of looking for who are you?
Yeah.
And
I love
who are all the things about you? The good, the medium, and the bad. I need to know actually what you're like, not just finding my green flags.
Totally. And I one thing I like to think about it is all of us on the planet is a mix of red flags, green flags, and yellow flags.
Absolutely.
Meaning like things about us that are safe and good to be in a relationship with, and things about us that are just honestly really difficult to be in a relationship with.
And some things that are neutral.
And like might be hard for you, but maybe wouldn't be hard for somebody else as much. Like I think of them as like slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down and see. And so I think like when you're feeling more secure in yourself and you're starting to get to know someone in dating, I think a good indication of I'm feeling safe is that I can hold all those things at the same time. Am I getting a mix of here's some things that I think could be really positive about you, and some things that are kind of I have on the shelf is like, I'm going to need to know more about that. I'm slowing down and knowing that I'm going to need to explore that more. And some things that I'm concerned about.
Yeah. I think I often, when I was younger, would get hooked on the idea of somebody. So they'd be cute or good looking, and they'd have a few things. Like for me, maybe it was that they loved playing sports. Maybe it was that they were kind to a few people and fun. And so then I would get excited about that idea. And what I was doing on the inside is, I think my needs are going to get met.
Yeah.
I think that this person could love me, or this person could see me, or this person. So really there's this deep, like, fear of being unfulfilled or unseen or unloved. It was my deep wounding that I kept looking for a face. And then I would make up that they were everything that would meet my needs. I made up like a narcissistic idea. It's almost like making up a robot in our head, and we're just putting
a robot
that is everything we need.
Yeah.
That wants to meet all of our needs, that is going to be capable of completing us, will finally feel important, will finally feel significant, will finally feel valued, will finally feel beautiful, will finally feel desired, will finally feel safe, will finally feel secure, will finally feel like we matter. Like there's all this stuff. And so then I'm putting the person's face on the idea of fulfillment.
Describe it. Yeah.
I'm putting their face on the idea of the feelings that I'm going to finally be okay.
Totally.
And then what happens? So that creates a very strong pull. And of course, I'm going to feel devastated if that being doesn't meet all my needs.
Totally.
And if they don't end up liking me, it can destroy my life.
Right.
Because I have now elevated them to be the parent I never had, to heal the wounds that are going on inside of me, to fix all the trauma going on.
Totally.
And so for me, the red, yellow, light thing you said is so important.
Yeah.
Because what I had to do, and I recognized this as a kid, I was like, I have to learn to look for their yellow and red flags.
Absolutely.
I have to train my brain to focus on that.
Yeah.
I have to find them. And so I actually I picked a few subjects that, because what would happen is if I didn't have yellow or red flags, I would get so hooked into, I need you to choose me.
Yeah.
And then I would obsess about them choosing me.
Exactly.
And so instead I had to be like, wait, I need to see if I even want to choose you. The problem was I was choosing people without any prerequisites except a few small details. And so the yellow and red flags, I began to be like, you know, when I got older, it'd be like, how do they spend their money? And I have to watch it long term. I can't just ask them a few questions, because I did the L word with, I'd look at a guy, how they spent their money. I'd be like, I'd watch them pay for the meal for everyone. And I just decide, oh, that must mean that they're generous.
Totally.
That must mean that they save their money. That must mean that they're good at it. And so I actually learned I have to slow this down. I need to see over months. How do they spend their money?
Absolutely.
I need to ask more detailed questions. I need to find out the yellow and the red flag. Now, money is like a funny one, but it could be how you do conflict.
Yeah.
It could be how you take care of yourself. It could be how you treat your friends, but it's looking for the yellow and red flags, not to become a negative human. I'm not trying to judge everything you're doing, but I'm trying to get an accurate idea of who you are instead of just green lights.
I noticed that a lot of people want to expedite the connection process. Like they don't want to slow it down. And I think
that's a good way of saying it.
I think it's terrifying for a lot of people to slow it down, because their fantasy can be busted. They don't want the fantasy busted. I don't want you to tell me that this doesn't work. I want to believe that this works. So I'm going to keep moving this forward as fast as possible. Right. And so
it feels good in the beginning to just
blow
through all the green
chemicals.
lights. Have you ever thought about just when you get a streak of green lights in a road, how good it feels? That's what falling in love with someone fast feels like. You're like, whoa!
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I think that ends up creating like such a mess for people inside of that. Like that addiction to hitting all the green lights creates such a mess, because eventually all of a sudden you find yourself in something where you're like, how did I even get here? And it's like, why was I so blind? How could I be blind? Well, a lot of times that's because A, you weren't willing to slow down because of the addiction to moving forward and the experience of that. And B, because you weren't willing to acknowledge, like, I'm creating fantasies that are filled with so many assumptions inside of this.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of needless pain that happens inside of the dating process because of that unwillingness inside of that.
And I want to say, I think this concept has a scale to it.
That's a great
point.
point.
I want to talk about different levels, because I can instantly think of a few people that I know that fell in love with characters in their world for like 10 years. And never dated anyone, never dated them, and were very, very hooked on the idea of who that person was and who they would be. And then there's, other variations like me, who I could get hooked fast, but then I could also, then eventually could switch out of that. And so I think, and then when we talk about marriage, the concept is this is one of the easiest things to do inside of marriage.
Ooh,
because you're having pain in your relationship, because it's a very red, yellow, green person you're married to.
With a lot of reds and a lot of yellows.
You've got red flags, you got yellow flags, you got green flags, and
You're sure aiming that at me really strong.
So many red flags.
I'm fully aware of your flags. But then I see another guy over here.
Yeah.
And I'm only
Who
noticing.
is he? I'll cut him.
I'm only noticing their green flags, and I can
Right.
make up in my mind, if I was married to them, I
How
would
wonderful.
never struggle with
Yeah.
feeling heard, or I would never
Yes.
struggle with loneliness, or I would never. And so it's so easy to make up the
Yeah.
idea.
Yes.
And so this is a big scale of how
Right.
it can look in varying circumstances. Do you want to describe why in childhood we do this?
Yeah. So there is a term, look at me just dropping terms everywhere, coined by someone named John Bowlby,
Mhm.
who is one of the fathers of attachment theory. And it's a term called defensive exclusion, which basically means that as a kid, you have a certain set of like beliefs that you have that would feel intolerable to you if they were threatened. So
Mm.
like maybe you might have a belief of like, my parent is perfect.
Right.
My parent is wonderful. And it's kind of maybe intolerable for me to lose that belief inside
Mhm.
myself. And so what we actually do is we exclude from our awareness the signs that could indicate a threat to that belief that we have.
Yes.
So any indication of like, let's say you want to have the belief your parent is perfect. Let's say your parent is an addict.
Mhm.
If you're a kid in this scenario, you are literally defending yourself by excluding from your awareness indications of that behavior and only focusing on the positive attributes that they are able to show you.
Yeah.
So it might be like, my dad just likes an occasional beer where he's like full-blown alcoholic, drinking all the time. But
Totally.
if I have to say my dad's an alcoholic,
That's going to feel very threatening to me. And that's going to
yes,
feel
I'm going to have to live in the pain
of that idea.
of that reality.
Exactly. So we kind of learn this particular way of being. And obviously, some of us who had childhoods that required more denial than
Mhm.
others. And so those of us whose childhood required a good amount of denial, we do typically continue to do that inside of our relationships. And this could be like where I think there's overlap between like friendships and mentors and romantic partners. But yeah, that's a lot of what's happening. And, you know, for a kid, often there's like I kind of need it for my own self-worth to be that like someone who is wonderful wants me
Yes.
and likes me and loves me.
Yes.
Like that's just like a
Yes.
truth of what
Every
kids
human.
need.
Yes.
And that then sort of informs your own sense of self. Like,
Mhm.
I'm worthy because someone wonderful likes me. I'm
Mhm.
someone wonderful's special person who they like the most.
Mhm.
And kids kind of need that a little bit for their own development of self. And if that process gets interrupted, we kind of continue to look for someone like that
Yeah.
in our life. Like one of the things I think about limerence is it's a pretty decent shame regulator. So if I have a lot of shame about who I am as a person, there's this sort of longing for something kind of overly positive or like overly wonderful
To
that
get
will kind
lost in.
to get lost in, and that will sort of maybe eclipse the shame that I have about myself maybe. So it feels really rewarding in my own system to sort of have someone that I've thought is wonderful and flawless and who's magical.
So there's this perfect person that
Yes,
wants
that
me
wants
or
me.
cares about me.
Mhm.
Yes.
I am special. I've
Exactly.
just now taken the shame monster's voice and silenced it inside of
Yeah, I
it.
can get relief from the shame that I feel. I can get relief from the sense of like fear that like maybe the reason that I didn't get my needs met in my childhood was because I was secretly not good or
Yeah.
I was actually a bad kid. So limerence is like I get to have this idea of someone who does really want me, who's sort of magical and wonderful.
Mhm.
So would you say that like that probably plays a role in, say, maybe a relationship where there's a strongly codependent person? I hate chalking it up to this, but a strongly
You're just talking about
narcissistic
me. It's
person.
fine.
You have like a strong narcissistic person who really doesn't exhibit a lot of care and love. And the person that's codependent is like, I'm in denial about all of the pain that you're creating. And you choose me and I'm with you. And every time I get you to choose me, I win and I'm special. And
Totally.
that's kind of like overtaking the shame monster inside.
Yeah. It gives you a little bit of a relief from that shame feeling for a minute. I got this one person, and there is like a little bit of a addictive idea about it too, that is like, I got this one person who doesn't care about anybody to care about me.
Yes.
Totally.
You know, that is a
100%.
really good feeling for those of us who want to feel special.
Oh,
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
yes. I
Yeah.
won the unwinnable person.
Ooh,
And
crack to my
and
soul.
if I won them once, eventually I can win them fully.
Oh,
like if I
yes.
win for one moment, if I got them to be kind to me this one time, then I can do it again and again and again.
Oh, yeah. I love that. There is this like almost addictive element of like the unpredictability of it all.
Mhm.
Like I got it, but then there was some other times they weren't. But maybe this next time will be a really good hook moment for us.
Well, and that's why a lot of us get hooked in a relational dynamic with someone
Mhm.
is because we experience success.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like a puzzle to our brain when the next time it doesn't work.
yes,
Instead of us thinking maybe this isn't the
A
right
good
fit,
Yeah.
or maybe this person doesn't have the love to give to me, we think, ooh, a puzzle for us to figure out. I am now addicted
yes.
to solving the riddle. I am now addicted to figuring out a way to get you
Yeah.
to respond back. And so people can do this. Let's say you're fantasizing about somebody and they respond back really warmly to one comment on social media.
Yeah.
And then the next one, they don't respond to at all. You are now hooked. You're actually
Yes.
more hooked by them not responding than you
It's
were
so
by them
good.
responding. The one response gives you that feeling of endorphins and high and, oh my gosh, this could be a possibility. They
Yeah.
could be a part of my life. They might like me. They might think I'm valuable. And then the next time they don't respond, you then feel this almost manic feeling on the inside of, what do I have to do? Who do I have to become? I need to say something wittier next time. I need to say something. They probably thought that I was, what I said didn't make sense. They probably thought that I wasn't coming up with enough information that was interesting. They probably thought I wasn't witty enough. I just need to up my game.
Totally.
Because we're like, I'm going to solve the puzzle of why they stopped giving me the attention I wanted.
Totally.
And then the effort we put in to winning bonds us to them, but it's not bonding them to us. So we spend 3 days after they text us spinning over what do we respond? What do we say? How do we hook them? And all of that time we're bonding to the idea of them. For those 3 days while we're running. But they are not bonding to us for those 3 days.
Totally.
Because they're not obsessing necessarily about our answers. And so so it's the process of we keep hooking ourselves in more and more.
Totally.
What I was going to say is one of the things that's a little bit unfortunate about it is that this process is really a dehumanization of one another because we've stripped out the humanity of another individual altogether inside of this. And
it's just an idea.
Yeah. You have just become an idea that can fulfill something inside of me, a want, a need, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then, now I watch this often in relationships that end up married on both sides, men and women alike.
Totally.
Are in my office and they are just angry and disappointed in who they married.
Totally.
And they're like, I didn't know they were hiding these things from me. And I was like, but were they? Like in some cases, yes, people are putting their best foot forward and you don't realize it until a year in, you're like, oh, you did bury that stuff. And there's a lot of fantasy that we participate inside of, and we create this alternate universe about this person. And now we're living disappointed with them because we've decided to look past that for our own personal fulfillment. And in dehumanizing them, now we're angry with them. Now we're in a posture of punishment towards them as we want to remove our love because all of a sudden they're not meeting the false expectations that we created for them. And that's a really painful thing that we do to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good way to say it. In researching limerence, what they call the person that you're like limerent on is a limerent object. Which honestly makes us all kind of go, ooh, like cringe when you hear it because you don't want to hear people referred to as objects. But they use that term on purpose to be basically like, this is an object for you. Like you are getting your own needs met. I remember this one psychologist, I thought this was such a jarring thing to hear, but she was like, you're basically emotionally masturbating to this person. That's basically what it is.
It's a great way to put it.
They're an object to you in a way for you to get your own needs fulfilled. And so because of that, like one of the best ways to kind of come back to what would be a more loving way to interact would be, how can I humanize this person a little bit more? What are the things about them that are actually probably more truthful, but maybe are actually uncomfortable for me?
Yes.
There is this, because you kind of want them to be the object of your own emotional fulfillment. You almost sort of like want to protect the fantasy that you have about them. You want them to be what you want them to be. And so what I love about sort of using that term is humanizing the person is a really, really beautiful way to start to come out of it.
The goal of humanizing is that we start to see people as more complex human beings. And so everybody kind of comes at it from different angles. If you are super skeptical of people and all you see is their red flags, part of humanizing them is learning to see their yellow and green flags.
Yeah, I love that.
If you are super in denial and you instantly love everything about people and you just see their green flags, your job is to learn how to see their yellow and red. Like a human, every human is complex, like you said, and has the yellow, green, and red flags.
Yeah.
And when we humanize people, we're wanting to see all of that. And in most situations, we are flip-flopping. We're like, they're either red or they're green. We think they're either a good person or they're a bad person. And after we break up with somebody, we're really likely to decide that they were either the best, they were fully green, or they're the worst, they were fully red. Because we think that that is a good way to deal with the pain instead of seeing them as a complex human.
I think that this is the wall that a lot of marriages hit, where they end up either in divorce. They have that crossroads of, I'm either going to get divorced or we're going to keep moving on forward. It's the moment where they decide to embrace the complex nuance of their partner, right? So usually the divorce point, especially early marriages that get divorced, you come in under this sense of limerence, right?
Totally.
And you're in denial about all kinds of stuff. You haven't embraced the fullness of someone's humanity. You park yourself in the marriage. Now all of a sudden the reality of their humanity is all unfolding in front of you. And you are going into the black and white thinking they're either all good or they're all bad. And you're being tormented by, I don't know what bucket to put them in. And then at some crossroads, you build a case of they're only a red flag, rather than, there's good that they add to my life, and there's difficulty, and there's things that we have to overcome together. And I think that this is an aspect of where the breaking happens. And I think that when at that crossroads, a couple can sit down and go, you know, there is a lot of pain you've brought into my life, and there's a lot of beauty that you've perpetuated. And I can see the full gamut of the gift that you are to me. And hopefully you can see the full gift that I am to you. And then all of a sudden you begin to accept this new truth and this new reality, excuse me. And you begin to ask, now how do we co-create a relationship based on the complexities of our nuances? And honor that.
And obviously not every relationship situation is like that. So there are some when it's like you actually do need to end because there are too many red bucket scenarios. And but yes, I think that's a really good point.
Plays a vital role in it.
I want to come back to one of the things that you said, Rachel, which is thinking about how we operate as kids, that we all want to see the best in our parents. And this is you notice this, like parents will laugh about it and they'll even be sentimental about it. They'll be like, man, I can have my worst day ever and my kid just unconditionally loves me the next day. They just unconditionally love me no matter what I do.
Totally.
And that is beautiful. But it is.
Kids have a big denial bucket. They throw all this in.
They need
and when they're adults, they rip that denial off. And they rant about you. Inside of counseling. Sorry.
They do need to see that there are good things about their parents. And that concept of that we are consciously learning to ignore the yellow and the red flags of our parents. So that our needs will get met. And when we do that, then we learn to do that with all humans.
Yes.
Yeah.
That concept makes so much sense to me because
Yeah.
we are all needing safe people around us.
Yes.
And we've had, thousands of clients that we've worked with, and people still have a hard time letting go of that perfect
Oh.
view of their parent.
Absolutely.
Into their 30s, 40s, 50s.
Or on the other side, letting go of the villain view of their parent that does only exists.
Right. But
Yeah.
the concept being that we have the capacity as humans to live in denial to try to protect us feeling safe.
100%.
My job is to learn, how can I protect feeling safe in a different way? And I know for me, like, I'll give a couple stories from my own life because this is something I really struggled with. I grew up with a mom who was borderline, which really impacts your ability to only see the good or only see the bad.
Right.
And so I noticed that I was doing these swings I noticed that I could get hooked on the idea of somebody. I noticed that I could make up who they were in my mind.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I had like a cycle in dating where I could do that for at least 3 months.
Totally.
Like when I got into a relationship, I would 100% make up everything I thought they were. And that's where you can move so fast.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, oh my gosh, are you the one? Blah, 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 blah. And then as time would go on, I would see who they were as a human, different than my idea. And I'd get more and more disappointed and disillusioned and be like, we are not a good fit.
Totally.
And so I did start learning, how do I slow down bonding? And I would literally tell myself, I would say, you don't have enough information yet.
Right.
You've only seen them do that behavior a couple of times.
Yeah.
To get accurate information, you need to see something consistent for months to find out if that's who someone is. Sometimes a little longer than months.
Yeah.
And then I would look for, what are things that I can put in the stack of, this doesn't seem accurate, or this doesn't seem healthy, or this could be a problem. I was looking for what could be pain points between us to help balance, because I was such a pedestal person, putting them on. So I started to learn how to balance. And what it did is it made me slow down as I was dating, because I would keep being like, I don't have enough information yet to know that they are a person for me to attach to like this.
Beautiful.
And we haven't had enough time together yet for me to know if we should attach. And a lot of what we're talking about is we all have an innate desire to attach.
Yeah.
And so some of us will attach to ideas
100%.
and feel like that meets our attachment needs.
Yes.
But it's very empty, and it is an up and down roller coaster.
Yes.
And it can hook us. And so I learned, I want to actually learn how to attach to a person. And to do that, I need to be slower. But I remember dating this guy, and I often experience this where I knew guys loved the idea of me. I was very, I'm fun. I can be like whimsical. I can be like, let's just do this wild thing. I can be spontaneous. I'm playful. I like to say everything I like about everything. Like I knew, and a person that was like a spiritual dad to me would say, like, you are so loving and affectionate with people. We're afraid a guy is going to fall in love with how you make them feel, not who you are. And so I remember this process where I would date guys and they would want to marry me. And I would say, what kind of red flags do you think I have?
That's a great question.
And I remember multiple times them being like, you don't have any red flags. I don't see any. I'm like, what things are you concerned about marrying me? And they'd be like, nothing. We would be a great couple. And I would be like, so there's nothing you can think of that is something that you're like having to process. Is this the right thing? And they would be like, no. And I'd be like, I have to break up with you because you are in love with the idea of me. And to be the object is actually really scary because you know the only move is down. If you're on the pedestal, you're not going to go up. They're not going to think you're better as time goes on. They are going to find out that you are human and they are going to start to be disappointed by you. That is not a ride that anyone wants to take.
Yeah.
And I knew like, oh, you think you want to marry me and you don't even know me because I have so many red flags.
Totally.
I have yellow flags, I have green flags. And that's actually how we got married. Is Justin was the first person who had some real concerns about marrying me. He had some real, things that he was like, I don't know how this will work out.
You're just listening to this.
if you're on YouTube,
go to YouTube and you can see my facial reactions to this conversation.
But you did. You had concerns,
Absolutely.
right?
I did have big concerns.
And there were things that you weren't sure if we should get married.
Yeah, I was very not sure if we should get married.
And that felt accurate to me.
And I
Truthful.
think that there was still things that I fantasized about you, which I think that you
100%.
did about me too.
Totally.
I mean, that's why I woke up inside of marriage being like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
With certain aspects of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I probably buried my head like you did in denial about certain things. But there was stuff where I'm like, no, this is a real problem. And what are we going to do about this? And how do I feel about that? And am I willing to choose that? And I think that that's an aspect of true love. Like when you're in limerence, you can't actually connect to real love. Like true love says, I'm going to look at the full scope of a person. And when I choose, I'm choosing all of you.
Yeah.
As much as I can see or observe, at least when denial is not inside the process.
And that felt really important to me.
Yeah, because then you get to feel chosen because you're not like, oh, there's a secret that I'm holding that he can't actually see. And it's just going to come crumbling down on me one day. There's like a stability and a safety in having someone who can look at you and be like, no, I see that. Totally. There's a really big problem here. And I'm in for it.
Totally.
It's not going to surprise me and I'm going to fight for this.
Yeah, it felt much safer that you saw concerns and you said, I want you anyway.
Yeah.
Aww.
That felt like a deep kind of love.
Yeah. Did you see concerns with me?
Not the ones I should have.
That's why we've had problems.
I mean, I think I saw some
denial
concerns,
over
but
Totally.
yeah, I had a lot of denial. I did exactly what we were talking about in my childhood. I glorified my mom. I thought she was the perfect human. I ignored all of her red flags. I didn't notice that she was mentally ill. I didn't notice that she was a hoarder. I didn't notice that she, was in bed and homebound for 10 years. Like I just didn't notice most of the problems.
Totally.
And so I was really good at that. And so that's why I'm saying this is a scale of everybody does it to a different level. And I think that for me, looked at at red flags and yellow flags the most that I ever had with Justin. I think I had gone on a journey. Imagine who I could have chosen without that. But so I did notice more red flags and yellow flags with you.
Yeah, which is a win.
There's two things I want to talk about in that. I'm going to talk about community in a second, but I want to say that when we're living out of that denial, the repercussions of that when we get into a deeper relationship is we oftentimes go into a lot of control. Like we want to change someone into that fantasy that we have. So we're like, no, you were this in my head. Now I want you to become this. And that leads to a lot of disaster inside of relationships because you didn't come in on the terms of accepting who they really are.
Exactly.
You came in on your terms. And now that they are not your terms that you had fantasized about in your head, now you want to control them and make them into that.
So that you'll feel fulfilled
and
you'll
safe.
feel loved.
Yes.
Yeah, and all of that. And so that's why this is an issue that really needs to be addressed because the long-term effects of it is that you then got what you wanted, which was the relationship that you were pining after. And then all of a sudden you realize that your partner isn't that. And now you're in that disastrous dance of trying to get them to be what you wanted them to be.
Totally.
And just shattering it. I think that one of the things you made mention of is you talked about how your spiritual dad, Doug, had interjected.
Yeah, he was concerned you're going to become an object to people and not a human.
Right. So he's giving you feedback. One of the things that I think is vital for us as we're in the process is to be able to both hear the feedback of our community and the feedback of someone else's community. Because there's something about I can't know the fullness of you in 6 months to a year. It's just like not going to be there.
Yeah.
But I can actually communicate with someone's community and be like, how have you experienced them? What's the way that they show up?
Totally.
Because they're not in fantasy about their friend. They're like, oh, my friend's a pain in the ass in these areas, but I still love them, and like to hang out with them. And you can get that kind of feedback. The other thing is that when people are lost in this type of fantasy and denial, they usually block the wise input of their own community. So their own community, like they're still like, they're amazing. And their own community is like, oh my God, like, no, they're not totally amazing. There's totally problems. And we become very defensive of our fantasy that we are holding on to. And so when somebody does try to speak up, oftentimes, no, this is why you just don't understand them. And we begin to shut down healthy feedback versus like when someone brings something to the table in our own community and says, I don't know if it's not that. If we're not defensive, if we're not in shame about the decision we're making, or we're not just so set on, I have to have this, we can be like, tell me what you're observing.
Yeah.
That's maybe not where I'm at in my mind on this situation, but what do you perceive to be true about this situation? And what that can do is that can help extract us out of the fantasy into some semblance of reality. And once we get into reality, we can still make that decision. But I think community is key, and being open in the way that we connect with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of times that my community helped pop the fantasy
bubble.
I think like a bubble that I've like made up this image of who someone is, and my community would be able to poke holes to help be like, and sometimes I would have to ask them for that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I can tell that I'm in that place where I'm seeing all of the good things and I'm visualizing all. It's not just that I'm seeing all of their good things. It's also that I'm focused on all of the good feelings I imagine I would have if they chose me.
So good. Yes.
So much of it is I am imagining the feelings I will have if I get someone like this person to like choose me.
Yes, 100%.
Then I'm going to feel so good about myself. Then I would feel content.
Yeah.
Then I would feel like I mattered. Then I would feel special and important and smart. And I'd finally be okay. And so I've had to have friends pop both bubbles, which is, hey, I'm actually seeing this behavior from them. That doesn't go along with all of your green light theory. That doesn't go along with your idea that they're just great.
Yeah.
And then also poke holes in my own fulfillment fantasy.
Totally.
And say, hey,
good.
It seems like you think that your pain will be gone if this person chooses you. It seems like you think that your identity struggle will be finished. It seems like you think that you will finally be safe and secure and loved if they like you. And I just want to remind you that you will still be you. Your insecurities will still exist.
Yeah.
Your fears will still exist.
Yes.
Your dynamics will still exist.
Yes.
Whether you're with them or not.
Yes. I love what you're saying so much, because a really fundamental concept inside of limerence is that we kind of have what we would say like our delusional solutions to problems on both sides. So like, let's say I am dating this person and I've had this self-esteem issue for like the last 20 years of my life.
Yep.
My delusional solution is like getting married to this person is going to solve that.
Yes.
And vice versa. Like, let's say I'm dating someone and let's say I have wanted to have kids for however long. And the other person has been like, no, I know that I don't want to have kids. My delusional solution might sound something like, I'm going to love them so much that it's going to solve all of their mom issues.
And they will want kids.
And they will want kids.
Yes.
And so that's one that I really love is looking at, if you're getting to know someone, literally asking yourselves, do I have any delusional ideas
solutions
of how this is going to be a solution to a big pain point in my life or a big pain point?
I think that's so good.
I think that's a powerful piece of homework that people need to take out of this episode, is to sit down and go, where am I living with delusional solutions in relationships?
And imagining that one relationship will cure all my anxiety, all my depression,
the magic pill,
all of my insecurities, all my confusion about the world, all of my not knowing what my life path should be.
Totally.
Like we believe, oh, if I just married the right person, then I don't have to wrestle with what career am I going to do.
Totally.
It's just that idea that there
Yeah.
is, and all of us want to hold on
Yeah.
to the idea that there is a magic pill
100%.
where we will all of a sudden feel better.
Yeah.
Because the idea of that magic pill feels like hope to us.
Oh, yeah. And there's also this like desire to attach to something in somebody else
Mm-hmm.
that we don't allow ourselves to attach to in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this, again, sort of this delusional solution of like, I haven't been able to be powerful for my whole life. I haven't been able to be assertive or like know my own mind. So this person that I have limerence with, what are the characteristics of what they're like? Oh my gosh, they're so assertive. They know all of their own
Yes.
opinions. And there's sort of this emotional idea of like, if I can bond to that subconsciously, this
Yep.
is a lot of it is subconscious,
Yep.
I'm going to get a solution to this
Yes.
problem that I've had my whole life, which is that
Yes.
I don't know how to be powerful. So I can sort of connect
Mm-hmm.
with this person who does, and that will help me feel safe.
Go ahead.
I had a situation like that in marriage where I could tell I was feeling just drawn a little bit to this person who was
Yeah.
not Justin.
What?
Dun dun
That's my
dun.
gasp.
And so I processed I actually processed with Justin because that doesn't feel threatening to him to process that with. And he was like, what is it that you're feeling drawn to? And I was like, they
Yes.
feel powerful.
Right.
And as soon as I said that, he said, where is it that you don't feel powerful within yourself?
Mhm.
And and instantly all of the attraction to them was gone.
Yeah.
Because it really wasn't about them.
Right.
It was about me hooking onto, I feel so powerless in this
Yes.
season. I want to be around something that feels powerful.
Absolutely.
I want to attach myself to something that feels powerful because I don't know how to
Yes.
connect to power myself. And once,
Yeah.
now I would recommend probably process with another friend first. It's been fine in our marriage, but in most marriages, that is not a thing that would make your partner feel safe or secure to process with them. But we have had a place where that's felt okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't feel insecure about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's human. One of the pieces of homework as we're wrapping this up that I think would be really good is if you've noticed that you've participated in this effect of limerence, especially within regards to someone that you're currently dating or maybe someone that you're married to, and you realize that you created a fantasy world
Mhm.
about who they should be, and you find yourself having disappointments and unrealistic expectations you've created for them, it may be really good for you to sit down and be like, hey,
Yeah.
I want to apologize. I've probably created ideas of who you are in my head and then held you accountable to some standard or expectation. And I've also put you in categories of some sort of fantastical solution that was going to fix me in these areas. And I've probably had areas where I'm frustrated with you on this. And I'm sorry about that. Like, I think that ownership, like awareness and
Absolutely.
ownership really sets us free from this type of thing.
Yeah.
When we can do that, and it just breaks the shame inside of things like this.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
maybe you're not dealing with a partner per se, and you're not with anyone, but you hear this
Yeah.
and you go, oh my goodness, I totally have this with multiple people in my life as a single person who's romanticizing, maybe sitting down with a friend and having an open
great.
dialogue of like, this is what I noticed that I'm doing. And I invite you to not only hear about this, but hold me accountable
Right.
as I move forward into connecting to people. When I process about like some new person in my life that I feel excited about the potential of, like asking me, are you fantasizing a little bit? Are you like making up a world in your head about who this
Totally.
person is? And giving people within your community permission to challenge you on these types of issues.
Mhm.
Also, have your friends listen to this so they don't buy into the assumption, because friends love to buy into it.
They absolutely
Yeah.
do.
They
You'll be
want to be
like,
excited with
They
you.
text it when I talk to them. They gave me this facial expression. What do you think it could mean? And your friends will be like, "Well, it could mean that they're intimidated by you,
Uh-huh.
and so they think you're
Oh,
so
so
amazing that they
Yeah.
felt intimidated, but they're so in love with you that they had to walk away." Like we have friends that play into a delusional fantasy for us, who build a fake world with us. And if you can have friends that won't do that, who can be kind, listen, who can be tender and like, of course you're wanting this connection with this person. Like I had this conversation the other day.
Not my world. My friends would be like, you're an idiot. Why are you doing this? And I'd be like, thank you. I need to hear it that way.
I had a friend the other day that had this exact thing. She went on one date with a guy and she was talking about how she's like, I just feel hooked. I can't get over them. It didn't work out. He moved on, but she was hooked a couple months later. And so we processed, what is it that he represents to you?
Yeah.
And what it was he's very protective. He's like in the army or a SEAL or something like that. And so he's powerful and protective. And I was like, oh, that's not what you experienced from your dad. And she instantly started crying. And then she said that she unhooked.
Yes.
Because she found the thing that she was trying to hold on to.
Yeah.
The fulfillment she was looking for, the thing that her heart had latched, she was able to unhook. And so I tend to have compassion for people when they're hooked, but it's helpful if they're open to figuring it out. The one last thing I wanted to end on is, let's say somebody dates someone for 2 months and then can't get over them, or just meets someone.
Yeah.
And they're hooked on them for a while. What are things you would recommend to help unhook?
I mean, I think one thing I typically recommend is actually just writing a list of green and yellow and red flags. Like I have clients do this all the time, especially if there's like a client who's like, this amazing thing happened, so I just know that they are this exact way. I'll be like, well, how do you know that? Like, what is the actual evidence that you have to how you might know that that is real? So having people, if they are going to put things in the green category, having to write down challenging it, like, or specific reasons why they know that that is true, to sort of begin the process of questioning that a little bit. And another thing that I do recommend to people is to look for, like, what is it in my childhood that a need that hasn't gotten met, that I'm imagining this person is going to meet that need. And that is part of why it feels so euphoric for me. And then honestly, I also look at, like, where is my needs met outside of this one person? Like, limerence is often because we actually have a block to intimacy and connection and vulnerability in our life in general. And so we have an idea that, like, this one super special person will help me get my connection, attachment needs met, and nobody else can, but they can because they're super special and wonderful. And so I often will challenge people, like, how vulnerable are you being in your friendships? How vulnerable are you being with mentors in your life? Like, can you grow a sense of secure attachment with more than one person?
I love that.
And often that will then create less urgency and, like, less high stakes panic around, like, if I don't have this person's love, I'm not going to be okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I would recommend is, what is the meaning you're assigning to what will happen if they choose you?
So good.
Like, are you assigning that will mean I'm worthy of love? If that is true, that is way too much pressure for any human to do. And they will always disappoint you, even if they do choose you. That high feeling of feeling chosen by them will eventually go away. Probably within a few months. And then you'll feel that longing still. And so kind of getting to some reality about that. So we hope that we popped a couple of your guys' fantasy bubbles, but we hope that we did it with hope for you and compassion. You know, I know that it's such a human dynamic. And I do want to say that although I noticed more of your red flags and yellows than I did anyone else's. And although I had so much denial when we got married, because there were so many things I didn't see because of my denial from my childhood, I am very thankful that I chose you.
Aww. If my husband was here, I'd say that too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I just want to flip you off so bad. I don't know what I feel about the cameras being here, but I'm like, fine.
I love you. Thank you for sharing that. All right, guys. Well, hey, if you haven't watched us on YouTube, head over there. It's so fun to watch us on YouTube. And go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell button if you haven't, so that you get notifications when these episodes come out weekly.
You can find Rachel Hughes on Instagram.
Yeah.
Is Rachel Hughes or
Rachel Hughes
Mel-
Consulting.
Rachel Hughes Consulting. Yep.
Yeah, find out more about her.
Hughs.
Yes.
Yes.
It's only been 12 years.
Rachel
It's
Hughs.
funny.
That's
Yeah.
not your last name in my phone. Okay. Yes. Rachel Hughes Consulting.
All right, I'm going. I'm done.
Okay.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.